Today's session is about the Journal Citation Reports, more specifically about the 2024 release, which is built on the 2023 data. So this session will be 1 hour long. I want to show the agenda here. So I'll start with the Journal Citation Reports or JCR overview and how JCR can help you support research integrity. Then I'll speak about the 24 changes. So this new edition comes with a few changes in this year's release. And then I'll cover the data integrations where you can find JCR data in other systems. And hopefully we have enough time for questions and answers. So a little bit of background and context. The key point I want to mention is that the recent estimates show that there are over 48,000 journals actively publishing around the world. And that obviously creates a lot of content. That adds up to a lot of content, talking about millions of publications every year. The key challenge is that it's becoming harder for researchers to understand which journals are the best fit for their manuscripts that they want to publish. And the key question is, how do you decide which journals should focus on? But also from a library perspective, from a subscription perspective, you go to any university which has a library has to decide which journals they would subscribe to. So these are the key questions: finding journals to publish, finding journals to subscribe to, and make data-driven decisions about your strategy in terms of publication, but also in terms of open access. In the next slide, I have this interesting chart that was done by The Economist in May 2020. So we already talked about the fast growth in published research output. But what we also notice is that along these, we see the rise of journals with questionable publishing practices. So The Economist, they reported at least 13,000 predatory journals globally in 2020. And you see that this phenomenon started around, end of the 90s, basically when people started to get access to the internet, and with a big jump, right, more and more predatory journals. So if you look at 2018, we have about 30,000 journals, and about half of them, 13,000, are though classified as predatory. So, and linked to that trend, something closely related is the increased demand for open access publishing. So you basically pay what we call the APCs, or article processing charges, to have your publication in an open access. That created some questionable publishing practices, right? So journals taking advantage of that phenomenon or the rise in open access. And they also promise short publications. As soon as you have your first manuscript in a preprint server or published in a journal, you start getting invited by journals, journal editors, publishers, and they promise fast publication time, fast peer review, but of course you have to pay, right? The key message here is that researchers, they need tools that would guide them to publishing venues, journals that they can trust. Something that we also notice is the misuse of bibliometrics, and that creates some strange behaviors or fraudulent behaviors. Predatory journals is really only the tip of the iceberg. In recent years, we also saw a rise in new types of fraud, and that leads to article retractions. So for example, salami slicing, which is basically you have data that you split from a single study across multiple articles. You have inappropriate self-citation, right? So you add lots of citations to your previous works so that you increase your number of citations, and that inflate your citation counts at the author level, but also at the journal level, especially when you see that journals, they encourage to cite papers that have been published in their own journals. You have citation rings. These are basically, citation cartels where you have citations between two or more parties, where you see groups citing each other, but in a strange or questionable way. We also see pressures on authors to add citations by peer reviewers. What we see a lot, peer reviewers asking to cite certain works, right? Paper mills, these are basically factories. They produce and sell fabricated manuscripts, and they also provide fake peer reviews. And then you have predatory publishers. I already mentioned that in the previous slide. It's very common to get invitations by publishers. They ask for your manuscript, or they found a manuscript in a preprint server, for example, and they ask you to publish in their journals against a fee, right? You have to pay a few $100s to get published without proper peer review. Then you have also something relatively recent, which is what we call hijacked journals. And the title of a journal, the ISSN of a journal, and other features like the website are copied, and they create a copy of that journal. And they start getting submissions. And researchers, they would think that they submit to the original journal. Then you have author marketplaces. This is something that you can find on the internet very easily. You pay and you become an author, and you didn't write a single word. You didn't do a single analysis, right? So you don't even know what the paper is about, and you can pay to become the first author, second author, and so on. So that's also something that we see. And then you have also citation marketplaces. You buy citations, right? So you pay someone to cite your paper. We know that at Clarivate we provide metrics, and we have an important role to play in monitoring these different behaviors, monitoring the research ecosystem. We take that role very seriously. So what we do in the Web of Science core collection, which is the underlying data of journal citation reports, so we provide content, data, and metrics that you can trust, and we do that different ways. Obviously, the first one is the selection. So that's the basis of the database. The journals that you find in the Web of Science core collection, they went through a strict selection process, a very solid selection process, and that creates data that you can trust. On top of that, we have indexing, where for each and every paper, you have strong indexing. You can find data that you can use, and that's data that you can rely on. And on top of that, our ISI group experts who provide metrics that you can trust. So as I mentioned earlier, different behaviors that you can question in journal citation reports, we suppress, that's an example, we suppress journals from journal citation reports if we detect citation anomalies, right? That would result in a journal impact factor that does not accurately reflect the journal's contribution to the scientific network or scientific publications, right? Indexing and also the standardization of the data, the consistency of document types across more than 21,000 journals, standardization of author names, affiliations, and that would also include addresses. So in terms of, so now speaking about journal citation reports. So journal citation reports, for those of you who don't know, is an annual report that looks at citation data. So you find citation trend data from the Web of Science core collection to help you understand a journal performance. So it's almost about 22,000 journals with a journal impact factor in journal citation reports. You have trend data, data around open access or non-open access publication, and also some transparency in terms of the distribution of citations, number of publications against the number of citations. So again, for those of you who don't know, citation reports provides you transparent and publisher neutral, Clarivate is not a publisher, publisher neutral data and statistics that you can use to make confident decisions about journals across your institution. In short, you have two main types of users when we speak about journals: researchers and librarians. Researchers, they use journal citation reports to find journals in their field, right, to publish their work. So index journals, and they have data about the impact of that journal. And then librarians, they use journal citation reports to make sure that their collections, so the journals they subscribe to, support quality research and teaching, and they also make data-driven decisions about open access strategy. That's a few screenshots from journal citation reports. Of course, I'll go through a demo later on, but just to set the scene and so that you understand what journal citation reports is about. When we talk about journal citation reports, we're talking about publisher neutral journal intelligence. So this is journal information or information about a journal. Journal citation reports is not new. So for almost 50 years, scientific community, they have relied on the JCR or Journal Citation Reports as a source, authoritative source for journal metrics. And each year we do deep analysis to ensure that the data is accurate, objective, and complete. So, as I mentioned already, we screen for anomalous citation activity. And if we find that journals display evidence of excessive self-citation, for example, at the journal level, and citation stacking, then those journals are suppressed from journal citation reports. The goal is to support research integrity. And journal suppression are not the only way that journal citation reports support research integrity. Of course, you can view citation metrics alongside descriptive open access statistics, contributor information at the country level. So if you take a journal, you want to know where the researchers publishing in this journal, where they're based at the country level and at the institutional level. So you will see the contribution of a country, contribution of an institution. And of course, you would be able to drill down to the article data. So you would know that an article has been published in that journal and contributed to the impact factor of that journal, right? And that helps you to better understand the relationship between an article and a journal. On top of this, there are two public reports from ISI that you can read on the internet. One that was published in January in 2019, and this one was in March last year. In here, the first report, we go through responsible use of citation indicators. So this is something that we about for years. Of course, we speak about the misuse of the journal impact factor in research assessment, and that can drive citation distortion. And we're invested in providing guidance on responsible research assessment. For example, when data about a researcher or an institution is squeezed or are squeezed into a simplified metric or league table, like a ranking table, so there is a lot of information that is lost. So we like to speak about profiles, not metrics. So when we speak about a journal, it's not only the impact factor, there is a lot of data that you should look at when we speak about a journal. So for example, the quartile, the journal citation indicator, which is a normalized indicator. Of course, the category, the frequency of publication. So there is a lot of data points. So that's why we speak about profiles and metrics. And the same for researchers. So lots of researchers, they like to say, my H index is 5, right? But then there's a lot of information that is lost. I don't know about the field. I don't know about your seniority. I don't know about number of publication. I don't know about the average number of citations per publication. I don't know about normalized indicator. Are you in the top 1%, top 10%, and so on, right? So there is obviously lots of data that we can use when we speak about research entity like a journal or researcher or institution. So this is covered in these two reports. In the second report, on top of metrics, visualizations are also very important because they help us to support responsible research assessment, and that unpack those visualizations. They usually unpack lots of data, rich information that lies under or beneath an indicator. I spoke about the transparency. So journal citation reports is transparent. For example, the visualization that you see here on this slide shows the citation distribution for articles in one journal, that is in journal citation reports. So that's one piece of information we provide about the underlying data behind the journal impact factors. For example, here you see there are quite a lot of papers, right, that are cited more than 50, but you also have quite a few papers, articles in gray, that are cited only one time. And then you have the median for articles. The number of citations is 7. That's the median. And then it's about 12 for reviews. And we know reviews are usually more cited than articles, right? So when you look at the journal impact factor, we know that not every paper would be cited as the journal impact factor because that's an average. So you would have papers being cited more than the journal impact factor. Some would be cited less than the journal impact. Here, journal impact factor is probably the most well-known journal indicator, citation metric, but there is a lot of data that you can use. And journal citation reports contain more information than just the journal impact. So we provide multidimensional profiles in journal citation reports, and that includes a wide range, a wide array of citation metrics. So of course, one of the most commonly used is journal impact factor. So journal impact factor is calculated by taking the citation. So it's calculated by taking the citations in 2023 to items published in 2022 and 2021. And we divide those citations by the number of citable items, so articles, reviews, published in those 2 years, 2021, 2020. So we also offer another indicator, which is normalized. So by contrast, it takes citation in 4 years, right? So the one that you see before, we look at these 4 years of data from 2020 through 2023, and we divide them by citable items in those 3 years. Citations in 4 years divided by number of articles and reviews in those 3 years. In other words, the JCI or Journal Citation Indicators count citation in 4 years to citable items published over a period of 3 years versus citations in 1 year to items published in previous 2 for the journal impact. And that's meaningful for disciplines that gain the bulk of their citations over a long period of time. For example, social sciences, humanities, it takes time to get cited, right? Compared to physics or computer science or other fields where you get cited very quickly. And you have a comparison between these two indicators. I'm not going through each and every aspect, but for each and every indicator here, we look at all Web of Science collection journals. Journal impact factor is not normalized. Journal citation indicator is normalized. So looking at just journal citation indicator, if it's above 1, the journal accumulates more citation than journal in the category. So you have 1 as a baseline. Whereas journal impact factor, you don't have a baseline. So you would need to go into the category and look at the rank of the journal and see if it's in the top 10, top 20, and so on. Yeah, so we look at early access content from for both indicators, and we've been doing that since 2020. We're not doing fractional counting, so it's citation is counted. For those of you who have used Journal Citation Reports in the past, you might have seen some changes already. So Journal Citation Reports is something that evolves quite a lot each and every year. Starting from 2015, for example, we introduced more indicators. In 2018, more data transparency, right, for each and every journal. 2020, we introduced more data related to open access. 2021, introduction of normalized indicators, and we expanded the content, so journals were indexed in arts, humanities, and emerging source citation index. They received their journal citation indicator. In 2023, we simplified, where for these 2 collections, we calculated the journal impact factor for all journals, not only science and social science, but also for arts, humanities, and emerging. And in 2024, we unified rankings. So now you can easily compare all journals within each category, right? So, and 2024 marks the completion of our phased approach. So we've done that in a phased approach starting from 2021. And the goal was to provide transparency on the impact with journal impact factor rankings and quartiles. All right, so now let's talk about Journal Citation Reports 2024. So what's new in this release? So a few statistics. Right now, this year, the Journal Citation Reports contains, as I mentioned earlier, 21,849 journals. That is coming from 133 countries, classified in 254 subject categories. So 544 journals received their journal impact factor for the first time. So you also see a breakdown by category. So majority in science, then about 1/3 in social sciences, and then 3,000 plus journals in arts, humanities. Out of these 21,000, 5,000, almost 6,000 journals are in gold open access. And as I mentioned earlier, 17 journals had their journal impact factor suppressed, right? As I mentioned earlier, because of anomalous citation activity, such as extremely high degree of journal-to-journal self-citation. So this is something that we monitor, right? Each of them will be still eligible to get in next year, depending on discussions with our editorial relations. What we've done also is that we consolidated categories. So until last year, you had a split between categories based on the number of journals in emerging and social sciences, for example, or emerging arts, humanities, and so to have fields that sit across these 3 editions, right? starting from this year, we merge all of them. So now you'd have 756 journals in education and in research, and that covers journals in imaging and social sciences. And that will be the case from before and beyond, right? So, for example, here you see in last year Journal Citation Reports, we had there were 2 economic categories and 3 history categories. In this year, starting from this year, those duplicates are removed, as you can see on the right, and we have consolidated all journals from any relevant collection in the Web of Science core collection into the same category, so that you can explore journals in the same discipline more easily. In the past, you would have to cover both editions separately. And what we've also done is we unified rankings for science and social sciences journal. So previously, all journals indexed in the Science Citation Index Expanded and the Social Science Citation Index, they were ranked in their category or categories by journal impact. This meant that a journal might have 2 ranks, right? As you can see on the slide, in the 22 data, this journal had 2 ranks. It was ranked in a group of 180 public health journals in the social sciences, and it was ranked in a group of 207 public health journals in the sciences. So you have a rank here, okay? Social sciences, Science Citation Index Expanded. This year in the 2023 data, the journal has only 1 rank in a group of 403 journals in the category to simplify journal performance assessment. So that change applies to all science and social science journals in 229 categories, where you have a journal that is indexed in both science and social sciences. That happens. For example, here, this category covers topics that are from a science perspective, but also social sciences. Okay, and in this case, we would combine all of them. Quick note here: while journals indexed in arts, humanities, and imaging sources citation index receive a journal impact factor from the 22 release. In June 2023 onward, so journals in the 25 arts humanities categories will not receive ranks, quartiles, or percentiles. They still get the impact factor, but for arts humanities, no ranks, no quartile, no percentile. So in terms of data integration, you find Journal Citation Reports data in many other tools, like in the Web of Science. When you look at one article, if it's published in an index journal in the Web of Science core collection, right, you can quickly view high-level JCR metrics, like the impact factor, the 5-year impact factor, the journal citation indicator, and that opens as like an overlay, like pop-up, where you can see the impact and influence in the field. In ProQuest, you also get something similar. So journal citation reports metrics, they're connected and you can view them within the ProQuest platform. So users, they can reference the journal citation indicator and journal impact factor of the title if they want to make a decision about where to publish their manuscript, right? And the journal citation indicator displays for all ProQuest platforms. The journal impact factor would be available for users who subscribe both to the Web of Science and ProQuest platform. So if you only subscribe to the ProQuest platform, you would see the JCI. If you have access to the Web of Science and ProQuest, you would also see the journal impact factor. For those of you in the library field, library activity, if some librarians have joined today, they might be familiar with Alma, which is a platform that helps you manage your collections. So the journal citation indicator is also embedded in the collection management workflow in the Alma platform. So you would see here on the right-hand side, so you have again another overlay here, and you can gather insights into normalized journal citation performance when you review your collections, and that links also to the journal citation reports. It's quite small, but here you see the source. So you have the journal citation indicator, the category, the rank, the quartile, and you can go back to the journal citation reports here. In terms of integration, something more advanced for those of you who work with systems and play with data into external systems, internal systems. So we provide what we call a Web of Science Journals API, where you can retrieve journal metadata and metrics. So that can help you support bibliometric analysis. What it covers, obviously, core collections, so science, social science, arts, humanities, emerging sources. And you get a lot of data that you can retrieve: grammatic, journal impact factor, journal citation indicator, the journal name, category, number of citations, 5-year impact factor, or the quartile, open access type, cited, citing, half-life, and again factor, average, journal impact factor, percentile. There are few examples in terms of use cases. So if you want to integrate with your internal system, something that people at the ministry can do, or a university, research office, library, for example, or if you want to do bibliometric study, so you want to retrieve data at journal level for entire categories for your analysis, right? There's a lot of information in our developer portal. I'm not going through that right now. So now what I want to do is I want to go to the platform and do a quick overview. Let me see if there's any question in the chat. Okay, nothing in the Q&A yet. Okay, so let me, yeah, by the way, because this is something, okay, yeah, that's a question I can get. Yeah, there's no need to confirm your attendance and share your email address with me. I have the list of participants, and you will receive the certificate, presentation, and recording. So for those of you who are interested, I'm just sharing that in the chat. I usually do one monthly public webinar, and I announce them via my free newsletter. And in that newsletter, I also share practical guides for researchers. So let me share that in the chat. Okay, so let me start with journal citation reports. So for those of you familiar with Web of Science, if you used Web of Science in the past, that's the Web of Science. You have access to the journal citation reports here in the top products. And if I do a quick search in the Web of Science, as I mentioned earlier, if I click on a journal here, if I click View Journal Impact, I already get some data from journal citation reports. You see the journal impact factor. This journal is publishing content in 3 categories: multidisciplinary agriculture, applied chemistry, food science technology. I get the latest impact factor, 2023, that was published in 2024, and that's the impact factor over 5 years. And I get the rank of this journal for each category and the corresponding quartile. And I also get the journal citation indicator, which is normalized, so now 1.33, right? I know that this journal is getting, on average, more citations, 33% more citations than the average in category, right? So that is in the Web of Science, right? So that's already there. But if I want more information, then I would go into the journal citation reports. So journal citation reports, there are, I would say, 2 main ways, right? So either you know already the journal you're interested in, or the category, or you have the ISSN, or you want to look at journals for a specific country or from a specific publisher, and you type in the name here, or you go and browse by journals, categories, publishers. So I'll do both. Let's say I'm interested in information science, right? So this is my field. So I'm interested in information sciences. I'm interested in the category, right? So it seems that a journal has the name information sciences, right? But I'm interested in that category. I'm not interested in these publishers yet. So I'm interested in the category itself, right? So in here, I would have the information that we have 161 journals classified as information science and library science. And here I see that it's a mix of social science journals, emerging source citation index journals, and so on. By default, these journals are ranked by impact factor. So I see here that the highest impact factor in this field is 20, and it goes down quite quick, 8.7, 8.2, right? So that gives me some information about, what I can expect in terms of impact factor in this field. And then I have the journal citation indicator, which is normalized. So interestingly, here you see that, for example, the second journal has an impact factor of 8.7. The third one has 8.2. But on average, this journal is getting more citation than, you see, 2.58, which is higher than 1 point. And we can see that here. right? So if I sort on journal citation indicator, this one stays number 1, but then you see, for example, this one comes number 4. And the second one, which was here, is way below, because now we have a normalized indicator, right? I can compare them if I want. So let's say I take the top 5, right? And I want to compare them. Sorry, I need to deselect, because you can compare up to 4. I already had one before, and I want to compare them. So here that opens a new window or a new tab where I have comparisons. So this journal is in social sciences. This one is also in arts humanities. This one is publishing in social sciences and science, information management. I have the country of publication, the publisher information, right? And I have the impact factor, okay? So I see the trend. So this one has an overall uptrend in the past 5 years. And here I have more information about the rank across each and every field. So I'm interested here in information science and library. So here, this one, and this. And it seems this one has different categories. So it's publishing content in information science and library science, like this one. But this one is more into ethics and philosophy, whereas this one is more into computer science and management, right? And I see the trend of the journal search. Here you see the scale is different. This is something to be aware of. If open access is something important to me, then perhaps these 2 journals publish, all in all, it seems that you have the possibility to publish in open access in all journals. This one is publishing more, relatively in terms of proportion, more papers in open access. So let me go back to, let's open this one for now. Let me do something else. So let me go back to the homepage. So that's when I know already the name of the category. But if I don't know, then perhaps I'm interested in a journal that I cited. I know that this journal is active in my field. So for example, this one, Quantitative Science Studies, that's a journal that I often read, that I read fully. So I'm interested in the profile of this journal. So it's open access since 2020. It's publishing in English, published from the Netherlands by MIT Press, and it's 1 issue per quarter or 4 issues per year, right? And I see the performance of this journal. So here, the impact factor, and I have 2 axes here. On the left-hand side, the journal impact factor, which is the bar. You should read this bar value against the left y-axis. And this dot is the journal impact factor percentile in category. So that tells me that this journal has a percentile of 83.4, right? So it's in this range when compared to other journals of the same category. In terms of transparency, of course, you'll see the calculation. How do we know that this journal has an impact factor of 4.1? It accumulated 493 citations in 2023 when we look at papers published in 21 and 22, and we divide by citable items published in 21 and 20, and that gives you 4.1 citations. On top of that, you get a breakdown, so you see the details of the publications, right? For researchers, that's quite rich because you would know here, right? You'd have a list of papers published in this journal, and you would know about the topics, but also about their performance. This is something that I could do here quite easily. I look at the journal and I see, this is my paper, for example, right? You see that's my paper. It was published in 2nd volume, and I can go back in the Web of Science, right? So these are the citable items, and then I'm interested in from where the citations are coming. They're coming from Scientometrics, Quantitative Science Studies, which is the journal itself, Journal of Informatics, and so on. That also gives me an indication of journals that might be relevant to my, so if I don't want to publish in this journal, I can explore these journals because I know that the papers published in these other journals cite this journal that I was initially interested in, right? And I can click on that and view the record again and so on, and I see the citations coming from this journal. Then I can go down, journal citation indicator, again 1.54, you get a definition here. So the average JCI in a category is 1. Journals with a JCI of 1.5, so here 1.54, have 50%, so this one 54%, more citation impact than the average in that category. It may be used alongside other metrics to help you evaluate journals, right? So in short conclusion, this journal gets 54 more citation impact than the average in that category, okay? So again, transparency in terms of, citation distribution, number of items by number of citations. We've seen that it is an open access journal since 2020, right? So majority of papers published in open access, and you get the rank. So it's ranked 27 out of 160, and that makes an 83rd or 83.4 journal impact factor percentile, and that's a Q1 journal, okay? Something that you might be interested in, again, that's the network of journals from where the citations are coming. We've seen that before. Scientometrics, Quantitative Science Studies, Journal of Informetrics, and so on. Something that you might also like is contribution by country. So researchers from the US are mainly publishing in then Germany, England, Netherlands. And then you have a breakdown by institutions. So Leiden University, and so on, right? So that's when you know the journal already. Similarly, I mean, you could do that, let's say, take another journal which has more historical data. So Scientometrics is another journal in my field. So it's actually in two fields, computer science and information science. First electronic journal citation reports year is 1997. So I can go back in history and see all years if I want, right? So if I see all years, I get the historical data of this journal and I can see how things have changed over time. So for example, the impact factor, journal impact factor without self-citation at the journal level, immediacy index, and so on. So I can go back to the current year, let me take 23. I will see the impact factor, and because this journal has more data, I can see the trend. The journal impact factor grew from 2019 and went slightly down in 2023, and something similar for the rank and the percentile, right? So if we take this one, journal citation indicator, so yeah, you would see something like this as well for each and every journal. In this journal, you have the possibility to publish in open access, but they also offer the traditional way, which is subscription and the bronze access type. And you have the rank, you see. So you see it was a Q1 journal and now it's a Q2 journal, but still well-known, field with a strong, relatively strong reputation. I've searched by name, but for your information, I also like to search by ISSN. That's also possible. And ISSN is unique, so you will get only one result, right? That's quite handy when you receive invitation and you see that the journal is claiming that it has an impact factor. A very, very quick way to check is go to Journal Citation Reports and search by ISSN. If you get a result here, that means that the journal is indexed in the Web of Science core collection. But on top of that, it has a journal impact. Otherwise, you wouldn't find it in journals. So when you get an invitation by email from a journal, especially when you don't know the journal, but I would probably try to stick to the journals that I know, the journals that I read, that I cite. These are the journals that are mostly relevant to my manuscript because they're very connected to my topic. Nevertheless, if you want to check what the journal is saying, it is indexed, it has an impact factor and all of that, that would be the place to go. Something else that I want to mention here, if you're not familiar with the categories in Journal Citation Reports, you start from the categories. So we have 254 categories and you have groups of categories. So for example, as someone and say, I work in medicine, right? So if I go to medicine, I have 59 subcategories in clinical medicine, and that is precise, quite precise. So in my case, for example, here, computer science, information science and library science, and computer science interdisciplinary applications or information system would be the most relevant to me, to my work, right? And here you have something more precise. So you have clinical medicine, where you have close to 7,600 journals. But in that overview or broad category, you have subcategories, very precise categories. So you simply click on categories, right? Same for agricultural sciences. You have agronomy, but also soil sciences and so on, right? If I go to engineering, is also something where we have quite a few categories. So environmental engineering, geological, aerospace engineering, manufacturing, ocean, and so on, right? Same for geosciences, is another group of categories. And here you simply click. So if I take, for example, let me take this one, nursing. So nursing is an example of category where we have journals in imaging, in social sciences, and in science, right? Imaging source citation index, science citation index expanded, and social science citation index. And we group these all these nursing categories into one, where we have now 191 journals. Some of them are mostly in science, and both in science and social sciences, some of them in imaging, right? So again, that's the default view. You can customize that. If you're interested in impact data, then you would have more data related to impact. If you're interested in normalized indicators, right, that's also an interesting view. For example, you have a normalized indicator, so everything above 1 as a journal is being cited more than the average in the category. Or you can customize. You don't want to see all normalized metrics. You're interested in this and so on. So you can pick and choose here what you're interested in. You can, once you have this, you can copy. That's a query. Or you say, I want to filter. I'm interested in nursing journals published by a specific publisher. So in my case, for example, Leiden University. So in some countries, you have publishing agreements with publishers. So Springer would give me some information about journals. So there is only one that is published by Springer where I can publish in open access, and the APCs be taken care of by the publishing agreement. So that's a filter that exists. You can put a filter on open access if I want, right? On quartiles, so if I want only Q1 journals, or if I want a journal with an impact factor between X and Y, right? So that's also available here. Once you get that, that's a query that you can copy and share with colleagues, and I can export that as well as a list. And this data won't change until our update towards October, November this year. I can also explore journals by countries. So here you retrieve the countries that I talked about. So if I say Morocco, I would find journals, 3 journals indexed, right? I can have a look at them here. 1 in chemistry, 1 in humanities, and 1 in surgery. I could do Pakistan, for example, and I have more journals, 32 journals, right? And I can see very quickly, if I look at the normalized indicator, so that's the one, Pakistan Veterinary Journal, that has on average more citation impact than journals in the same category, veterinary sciences. All others are below 1, right? So you see here, this one has multiple categories, Q1 journal, and that applied mathematics, okay? And you can also see journals that are publishing mainly in open access. I could do another country just as an example. If I look at Ghana, so I have 2 journals, okay, 2 journals here, all right. I could do Kuwait, I have 7, I think, 4 journals, okay. I can have a look at them very quickly. I could do Saudi. Let's have a look at Saudi Arabia, 26 journals, right? Yeah, and I can sort them to see those journals. So this one, for example, Saudi Pharmaceutical Journal, has exactly the average number, the average citation impact in that category, 1. Those 5 journals perform better than journals in their field. Okay, let's do, for example, United Arab Emirates. Okay, if I do Qatar, I know there's some journals there. Yeah, 3 journals. Okay, so right, so you got the point, and that's basically how you could explore journals. And same for publishers. So you recognize some major names. So Springer, then Elsevier, Taylor and Francis, Wiley, and so on. As I mentioned, you can download this data. And last but not least, something that I want to show you is the following. It's a tool available within Journal Citation Reports. Actually, in Master Journal List, I can match and ask Master Journal List based on my title and abstracts. So let me, because I don't see the tabs. Yeah. So you need to log in, of course, that's MJL or Master Journal List. There's a tool called Match Manuscript, right? And if I paste my title, so let's just assume that this is the title of my manuscript and my abstract, I would ask Master Journal List to find journals that are relevant based on the keywords that I use in my title and abstract. And those keywords are matching keywords. And it found 36 journals indexed in the Web of Science. And this one seems to be the highest or the best match because it has the highest match score, 0.44, one being the highest possible value. And because I'm using those keywords that we retrieve quite frequently in this journal. And then I have food chemistry. So these are names of journals. And of course, I can view the profile page and I get some data from Journal Citation Reports and so on. Okay, let me see if there are any questions because we're approaching the end of the session. So yeah, question from Rashid. Can we export the report of impact factor of any discipline? The answer is yes. I've shown that before. So if I take a list, let me just pick one here, biology. If I take biology, right, and I click on the number of journals, I can download that as an Excel or CSV file. So I would get all this data. Okay, another question from Bashir Ahmed, who is asking if we find any journal through Web of Science is reliable. So here, when you find a journal in Journal Citation Reports, you know that it went through the Clarivate Journal Selection process. I invite you to read it, and it has, so this is a public page, Clarivate Journal Selection Process or Web of Science Journal Selection Process, and we explain the curation that we do and all the indicators we look at. So all these indicators, initial triage, ISSN, title, publisher, content access, and so on. Then we have evaluation, editorial evaluation, which is like a triage. If the journal is publishing on time, if the language is clear, do we have article titles and article abstract in English? The full text can be in any language. And do we have references in Roman script? Of course, presence of ethics statement, and then peer review statements, validity statement, grant support details. So all this data that we look at, and then we have the impact criteria. So that's 24 points of evaluation. So we look at all this data. So that's the initial triage. For example, the journal must state whether it has a defined publication frequency, and we would check if it's publishing on time, the affiliation details. So it's really about the quality of the journal. And then we also look at the impact, comparative citation analysis, author citation analysis, the editorial board citation analysis, and the content significant. Is the content published in the journal of interest and important, right? So you could have a look at this recording session so that you know about how the journal selection process works. And if the journal has gone through this process, then you know that it has been evaluated by independent editors, and it matches our selection. So another question from Bashir Ahmed. I think the question is not clear. Moreover, is there precedence about the drop of journal from your list category? I didn't get the question. I think there is one word that is not spelled correctly. Is there about the drop of journal from your list category? So if you go into the help section here, you would have title suppressions, the journals that were suppressed, right? And we explain what happened. Was it self-citation, stacking citation, and so on. A question from Mohammed Hussein. So yeah, the question is, haven't you released JCR 2023 recently? And JCR 2024 shall be released by next year. Am I correct? That's correct. Here, what you have in Journal Citation Reports, right? So if I look at journals, right? Okay. And if I go filter JCR year, the latest one is 2023, which is published in 24. So that's the 23 edition, because we do those calculations between January and March, April 2024. But this is based on 2023 data, right? The 2024 editions will be published in around June, July 2025. Yeah, so the journals that were suppressed are here. That's a question from Adanu. Can we see the 17 suppressed journal? It's public. You can go to the help of the CR, you go title suppressions, and you see the journals that were suppressed. Yeah, so another question from Bader, who's asking, as a beginner in human sciences or humanities, is it better to start with Q1 or to first be familiar with research steps and start with Q3 or Q4? So again, what you need to understand is that Q1 is an indicator at the journal level, right? So if I look at, so it really depends on your manuscript. Is your manuscript good enough to be published in high quality journals, right? Or like Q3, Q4, there are lots of information to take into account. It's not only Q3 or Q4 is for beginners and Q1 is for experimental researchers. That's not true. You'll find Nobel Prize winners publishing Q3 or Q4 journals. Again, Q3, Q4, Q1, Q2, all this data is at the journal level, and it has nothing to do with the paper or the author who published that paper. It's an indicator at the journal level. You can take a Q3, Q4 journal that is publishing, that is indexed, of course, that is publishing very good content. It has nothing to do with your experience. Yeah, the JCR service is free. No, it's not free. It requires a subscription. So, Ahmed, I'm not sure which affiliation where you're based, but if you can contact me, I can let you know if you have access or no, or you can reach out to your librarian. They would know whether they have access to journal citation reports or not. So yeah, if you can let me know the country or your institution, I can let you know whether your institution has access and how you can access journal citation reports. No, yeah, that's another question from Mohammed Hussein, who is asking, in science, date filter works on yearly basis. Can there be a filter to provide month as well? No, the data and the benchmarking is done based on the year, not on the month publication or on the quarter. It's only on the year of publication. Okay, so that's the questions on the chat. Let me see in Q&A. Yeah, so of course, so there is a question about having this session in other languages. So I've done this session in French. I've done this session now in English. There are other sessions being conducted by colleagues in other languages. So if you're interested in attending other languages, the same session in other languages, you can find the information of the webinars in clarivate.com. Yeah, question from Adil, who's asking, generally, what is the average period of time between sending your paper and the acceptance of it? Really depends on the journal. Some journals would mention that. So this is a journal that I know that I've published in, and I'm familiar with this journal. So if you look at Scientometrics published by Springer, usually journals that use a system to receive manuscripts and manage manuscripts, they have their statistics. So here, for example, they can tell you that between the day you submitted your manuscript, between the day you submitted your manuscript to the journal and the first decision, there are about 31 days. That's the first decision. It doesn't tell you how long it will take to get published because you might go through multiple rounds of peer review, right? First round, second round, and so on. If you want to have more details, for example, the paper that I want to look at, Scientometrics, one that I published recently with this journal. If you go here, you see, I submitted it on 16 September and it was accepted 28th of February, right? So that's about 5 months. And so finally published in May 24. If I take another one, so you can pick a paper and have a look at this data. Where is the data here? Or you open the PDF. You can open the PDF. Okay, PDF would be here. Download PDF, and in the PDF, you would usually have this data as well. Yeah, you see, it was received 6th of March, and it was accepted 8 December. So that's about 9 months, and it was published in January. All right. Thank you very much, everyone. I hope you found the session useful. Give me a little bit of time. You would receive your certificate as well as the presentation and link to the recording or a similar recording. Yeah, and you'll get my contact details. If you have any question, feel free to I wish you all the best. Let's stay in touch and take care. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.